Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to the weekend, and thankfully all that bad weather has calmed down a little bit. There was mess everywhere this morning in the garden. Anyway, I'm popping by to create a card. Now my plan was to do something with the pigment ink Glacier White, but I sold out. Excuse me, I sold out quite quickly. So I've ordered more and more stock again. So they will be here next week, and so I'll do a demo next week when those arrive, because it's unfair to people if I demo and then when they go straight to the website it's sold out. So some more of those are on the way, and I haven't forgotten, I won't forget. So I thought I would do a demo with the Lindy's magical shakers that I've got in stock. Again, these are selling so fast I can't keep up. But the magicals, these are powdered dye based pigments, and you can get shimmery ones, which I've got some shimmery ones, and flat colours. I've also got plenty of the flat colours. Now don't worry if these sell out. These are going to be a stock item as long as Lindy's have them. I will keep ordering from Lindy's. So don't worry about that. Now with these, just like you do with your brushos and other pigments, the reason I've gone for these is I like the colours. The colours for me really appeal. So you can paint with them, you can mix them with your texture pastes, you can add texture paste and then add the colour over the top and it sinks into all the crevices. It's wonderful. So I also love the fact that you've got this lovely lid on here. And then when you do this, you've got this lid, so I don't have to put a pin in there. It's got a lovely lid on there, and that really appeals to me. It doesn't take much, I know, you know what I'm like. Now, it's entirely up to you. You can put the dry pigment on there if you wish, and then you can spritz with water. But what I like to do, I'm using my Pink Frog Super Smooth card, 4 inches by 6 inches. Watercolour card is brilliant as well. Now I'm putting some kitchen roll down just to catch any stray. You can add it to a little box, a shoe box, or your spray boxes or whatever. So I'm going to mist my card, and then I'm using, that does appeal to me so much, I'm using Head in the Clouds instead of clouds, but I do love the names. Now, I don't need to add too much. And it starts to react with that water rather nicely. Now, because I've already got the water in there, that means it's not going to sort of flick everywhere. But look how that moves. Beautiful, beautiful colours. Now, the more I wet it, the more that water flows. But you can see the pigment in there. It's just beautiful. And I can come in and I can add more pigment to that. Do you like how it flows and moves with the water? Now, why have I bought these in stock? Well, 1, I love the colours. 2, I love the company and the ethos. And also, you know I'm a stamper by now, and my products, what I design, are stamps and stencils and a very few dies. Now, I love to have mediums that go with the stamps, but mediums that I know I'm going to use. And it takes me a while to bring products into the shop, because I'm not just going to bring products in for the sake of bringing them in. So I've also got Gypsy Soul Slate. So the first one was Head in the Clouds and Gypsy Soul Slate. I'm probably pronouncing everything totally incorrect because that's me all over. But I have to say, I love this little lid. It's just so cute. So I'm going to add a little bit of the Gypsy, whatever I've just said. So let's just add, so this Gypsy Soul Slate, there we go. So it will just, the Gypsy Soul Slate will just add, you can just shake them like a shaker, because that's what they're designed. They're a shaker, so that you can shake them. You don't have to tap them like I'm doing. And then I will just spritz with water again. And that will, the Gypsy Slate will just add to the moodiness of the colours. Now, if you can allow them to dry naturally, that's wonderful. Now, there's other things you can do. Now, these are going to be wonderful used with your stencils. So let's just let that dry a little bit. And let's grab another piece of kitchen roll. You could also use your kitchen roll in your projects if you wished. You can also, let's grab our, I've never got anything just quite at hand. So let's grab our distressed background. There we go. So let's grab that distressed background. And then I'll just add a little bit of water. And then I don't know why I keep putting the lids back on. So you're meant to just shake them like so, because they come out nice and easy, or you can tap them like I did. I'm going to add a little bit of the slate as well. I just love those lids, it does make me laugh. So I can add a little bit more water, but I can also have lots of pieces of card just on the side, because have a play. So I'm going to just mop up that. So I can mop up some of the ink, and now I've got the stencil turned this way. Can you see I've now got this pigment? I can spritz very lightly again so it continues to react. Just gorgeous. I'm going to have nowhere to put all these backgrounds I can see coming. So I'll pick the stencil up because I turned the card over. So then I've got another. Look at that. Oh, just adore this stencil. Again, that's now back in stock. Oh, just wonderful. It's just becoming one of my favourite stencils, this is. So then I've still got pigment on there. I can take that pigment, but I can also add more pigment on the top if I wish. So let's just use the kitchen roll that we've got just to mop up any of that excess. There we go, and let's just remove that. You see, I love things like this. I love that deep, rich blue colour. And you can see I've still got some ink. So I can spritz the card. There's only a little bit of ink on there, so let's spritz the card a little bit. Like so. And then I can sprinkle, look, I can shake. That's the whole point, the shakers. So let's add a little bit more of the slate. And then I can spritz with a little bit more. Again, it goes on, and this is why you have lots of pieces of card, because you can then place this on the top. And lift that up. I've then got a background again. I've now got hundreds of backgrounds lying around everywhere. Lift this up. You can then dab your card just so you've got a little bit of that moisture dabbed up. I can then place this back over again, and then I could take a blending brush. Where are we? Blue one. So I could take a little bit of my blue blending brush, and I can just blend that colour. And then I get more definition. I can still spritz with water and react that a little bit if I wish. So that background then becomes different to this background. Just lovely. So I'm going to wipe the stencil, but really you wouldn't wipe the stencil because you've got plenty of ink on there. And because you've got plenty of ink, you don't really, you should really have another piece of card. let me just clean that up, just so I haven't got as much of the blue on there. As you can see, my kitchen roll, because I'm rubbing against them rough edges, because of course my stencil isn't smooth. Well, it wouldn't be smooth, would it, my stencil? Right, let's grab another piece of card. And whilst I'm doing this, my other piece of card is drying a little bit. Oh, not on the top, Tracy. You could also emboss these stencils through your die cutting machine, and then you could add this over the top as well. So let's take the Gypsy Soul slate, and I haven't added any water. You can, just to prove, you can add the water afterwards, but I tend to be a little bit more gentle, just to make sure that the powders don't flick everywhere, and that's why I add moisture. Just so that it grabs a hold of that powder. Can you see the Gypsy? You can have very pale colours as well. You don't have to have it full in your face. It can be pale as well. It doesn't have to be too in your face. And what you need to do is, if you let them dry as well, lots more of those colours will become visible. I'll just add more water to this. Let's add that slate. And this slate is a really good one to add to other colours, because we don't all want dark colours, do we? Some of us want paler colours, but look, other colours come out of this. Look, bits of pink there, look. So give them time to do their job. Let's move this. I keep saying let's move this. There's nowhere to move it. That is lovely. That is gorgeous. That would make a lovely moody background for some trees. Just wonderful. So let's move these out of the way so that can just dry a little bit and do its job. So let's just move this out of the way. I'll just put another piece of kitchen roll under that. There we go. So it's a lovely way to create backgrounds, and we don't have any mess, because look at those little bottles. Just shut that bottle up like that. Put your lid on. Oh, small things amuse small minds, I know. But there you go. But if we bring this in, you can see, can you see the colours that you've got on there? Just wonderful. And then you can sort of, you don't have to dab like I'm doing. You don't have to do that at all. Now, you can also paint with them. So let me just take that out of the way. That is soaking wet, which I'm going to give it a dry shortly, but we'll do that in a moment. Now, you would use a paint palette. Personally, it's best if you use a paint palette. You know I'm not going to do that, don't you? Of course you do. So let's just add a little bit of water here. I'm just going to shake this in here. And then let me take a flat brush. Now you can add this to your pastes as well, but you can quite easily paint with it as well. No problem at all. So you can create a lovely background. That we can then, let's grab some more water, a little bit more of our little shaker. And obviously you will then add layers of colour. So let's take, look how nice and moody that is, but it's a lovely background for a project. And if you can allow that to dry naturally, all the better. I can then come in and make it darker still, particularly if, let me grab my heat tool. Let's grab the heat tool, which I've now got knotted. There we go. So if I sort of just waft that, you can then make it darker still. A little bit of water. Let's take, what is it called? Head in the Clouds. I just love the names. It does make me laugh. So take another layer. And you can make it darker still. So you can go from super light to very dark. There we go. So you can sort of get those difference in colours. You can also, let me just pick, I'm going to have stuff everywhere. Let me grab. So let's take a bit of water again. Take the shaker. You can add multiple colours. You don't have to add one colour. Let's add a little bit more water and a little bit more shaker. Mix that up. Just look at that pigment. I can then just move this around like I would anything. Move that around. Move your colour. Because then you're creating different backgrounds. So just, you can also then just react, move it a little bit more. Can you see? It will move. So you've then got another background. But for me, it's all about increasing the uses of our stamps. You know I'm a stamper. You know I adore my stamps. And that's what I specialise in. But we need products we can use with them stamps that we enjoy using. Plus, they are simple to use. There's nothing complicated. The only complicated bit is I actually need more space. So can you see how lovely that looks? So I'm going to move this. Let's move this out the way so you can actually see. And also, every time I add moisture, I can keep adding to the powders. No problem at all. So let me grab another piece of kitchen roll. Just grab that piece of kitchen roll. Let's just give my brush a little bit of a clean. Now look at that pigment in there. As you wash your brush, you could mop up the pigment and again, look, create another background. Look at that pigment. Superb. Absolutely superb pigment. That will need a proper washing. We'll worry about that later. I'm then going to take, let's test to see if we can, let's just close the lid on that because we don't want to waste any of our pigment. So let's, I'm just going to use, let's grab a piece of card, just a small piece of card. You don't need a punch, you don't need a paper punch, but I'm just going to use one. Just so I can physically see where I'm going. Now, let's grab some water. Do you like I'm looking for my water everywhere? Now, I'm just playing. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just playing at the moment. Just to see what happens. So I'm going to take a round brush and I'm going to take a little bit of water. Yes, it does lift the water, that's what I want. So let's just, you do not need a circular punch. You can just go around in a circle with your, so you don't even need, you can just go around little tiny circles. You can make them bigger. You can make little dots. So let's sort of make, you know, sort of like it's a winter night. Obviously make sure your brush has not got any pigment on and that it will sort of bleach out. So now I've got quite a bit of pigment in there. So let's grab another piece of kitchen roll and let's mop those up. As you can see, we can remove that colour. Wonderful. So we can create a little bit of a snowy scene. Yes, you can just splatter with water, but I'm going to be a little bit more sort of considered. So I'm just adding dots of that water. You could do this in purples, greens, reddy colours. I could have made the background even darker. No problem at all. We can have another big one there. So I'm just creating a little bit of our scene. Can you come in and remove more? Yes, you can. So let's just dab that up. And as you can see, it then just creates, we can create a little bit of a winter scene. So let's create a little bit of that winter scene. And obviously, if you give it a little bit of time, it will continue to bleach that out. You can make it bigger, you can make that one bigger. You can keep playing, which is exactly what I am doing. Can you see? So I'm just playing. So let's grab a stencil. Let's grab SS26. So we'll take SS26. There we go. Let's grab the SS26, like so. And now what we'll do is, let's take a bit of kitchen roll and absorb that moisture. So I'll just spritz the kitchen roll. And I'm just going to dab the kitchen roll, just to remove the initial layer of colour. Let's turn this over. I'm not scrubbing the card, I'm dabbing. So I'm just dabbing that card. I'm not rubbing or scrubbing, I'm just dabbing the card. Okay, so you've removed most of the colour there. So I'm going to take my water now. Let's grab clean water and let's just paint. Don't go too close to the edges with a load of blob of water. Can you see how much pigment's in there? And don't let it swim for too long. Oh, look, nice snowman picture there. You could have mopped that up with another piece of card quite easily and then created another snowman. Look at the pigment in there. Absolutely wonderful. So I'm just going to go around the snowman. And we're just going to dab our snowman. Let's lift this up. And you can see the only thing I'm doing is playing. There we go. So let's grab a little bit of a finer brush because we need to get into that little fine detail. Let's just, so I'm using my fine brush now just to go around a little bit with the fine detail. With the fine detail, you know what I mean. Just so I can get the edges. You knew exactly what I meant, didn't you? So I'm just using a finer brush just to just to get a little bit of finer detail. Let's lift this up just so you can see you've got your snowman shape on there. Now, it shows that you can bleach things out. But just so I can make that pop a little bit more, I'm going to add some white paint. So you can see that you can bleach it out as well. So what I'm going to do is just add, let me just dry this. Turn that around. Let's just, oh crikey, let's place this on the top. And I'm just going to use a piece of kitchen roll, to be honest. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint now. You can use your blending brushes, you can use anything you want. I'm just using the kitchen roll, hoping that will sort of give me a little bit of texture. Now, if you use a stippling brush, you will get the same effect. But it's sort of, by using the kitchen roll, it looks sort of a bit more textural. Sort of work it into the kitchen roll. And you get lumps and bumps. Have a bit of low tack tape to hold your stencil down if that makes you feel better. Don't forget, you can put the stencil back over the top, so it's not a problem. Now, because I've got that very pale, because I've bleached out the colour, this should take quite nicely. But because I'm using the kitchen towel, it's not smooth. I don't want it we go. So I've got a snowman and it's becoming more textural. Yes, I will get the definition. I'll worry about that later. I'm just at the moment worrying about the texture. I worry about the lines and definition afterwards. So at the moment, I'm just getting the texture I want. And I want it uneven. I don't want my snowman. Eventually your kitchen roll's going to break down. But if it leaves a little bit of that papery element on there, it adds to that texture. So let's clean this up so we've not got any mess anywhere. Let's move that white paint. I'm going to lift this up in a minute so you can see. And you can see when I'm playing, it obviously takes me a little bit longer because I'm playing with ideas. And sometimes it might not work, but that's fine as well. So let's just clean our stencil. Clean your stencil because you don't want that paint, and sort of bring the paint towards you. Don't scrape it so that you distort your stencil. There we go. Then you can't pick it up because you've got nails and it's wet, and it's the suction. It's hilarious. So let me just give that a dry because we're going to put it back on the card. And the reason you're going to give it a dry is if you put it back on the card, you don't want it to rip your card. So what I want to do now is I'm going to lift this up and show you. Can you see the texture? It's really rough and ready, but I want that texture. I want it to be a bit different than just having the normal snowman. And then we can make sure we add some definition. So let's grab a little bit of pencil. So we will grab a very dark blue, which is the indigo blue. And then we'll have a little bit of violet blue, and then just something pale to blend that out, which is not sharp at all. So let me just give that one a little bit of a sharpen. There we go. So we'll just give that a little bit of a sharpen, just so it's a little bit easier to use. So don't worry if you lose a little bit of detail. Don't panic. So then I'm going to take my indigo blue PC 901, and I can just now just go in and go over that lumpy bumpy detail, and I can just add in a little bit, and you can see it's lumpy and bumpy. I've got texture on there. You can even draw the little hands in afterwards. So let's take a look now. Now I've got a little bit of definition, and what I can do is I'm just going to add a little bit of dark. Just initially add a little bit of that texture. You know, if your hands are slightly different, doesn't matter. You know, it's a snowman, the hands. And they look different every time. So I'm just going to come in and add a tiny bit of that colour. Can you see there's tissue on here and everything? Thick paint, but it just adds to it to give it a little bit of that texture. So let's just add a little bit of that. So just blend out a little bit of your colour, just so that you've got that line. And don't worry, we can go round again with the stencil and add some white, so don't worry about that. I've then got the violet blue, PC933. And I'm very lightly just adding a little bit of that just on there. Just adding a little bit. Now, I don't want it too dark because we want our snowman to be mainly white, don't we? I'm then taking the cloud blue, PC1023. So let's just take that 1023 and just blend that out. You want a little bit of blue on there, but you don't, if you know what I mean. Because it's going to be in the background. Now, you know me, you know that I like to play. And you know I like to take my time in what I'm doing. So that's, oh, it's always, I always pick that one up. Might have to go round. Might have to go round with my bleed proof white, but we'll see. So I'm just coming around, just adding a little bit more white now, just on the outside. Now don't forget, this is going to be in the background. Let me just add a little bit of the hands. There we go. Somebody's just locked the door, which means that when I answer the door for the postman, it's locked, which is great. But you can see we have our snowman in the background. We can now just add little bits of the white just to add to our blizzard, as I call it. We can just add this. So I'm just adding little touches of the white. And you can see it's nice and simple. Just adding a little bit more. So I'm just using that Posca white pen. Got more of our blizzardy sort of snow there, and then I'm just bringing this background that's still drying. Can you see? So we've got a lovely background there. I could add trees too, so that would be wonderful. Excuse me. So let's grab a myriad of designs. There we go. So let's just move that out of the way, and we'll take our snowman. Now there is a small one and a big one. Let's pick that up. Just need a bigger. There we go. And what I want to do, let's just move this out of the way. And you can see I never rush what I'm doing, is I can have that snowman wherever I want with this one in the background. You could use the, where's the little one gone? The little tiny one, if you wanted to, just on the inside. So let's just move that out of the way because we are running out of space here. Let's grab a piece of card. She frantically looks for a piece of card. I now need my ink pads. And I want one with the dark blues in. So we can mix and match our products. Look at these now. So you've got this background, and you can see the grey in there now, the slate. It's just lovely. You can see that really in there now. There's one that's very pale. So you can see this is the one where I blended the colour over the top. Just gorgeous. All right. So let's take this nice dark colour prize ribbon. I'll just put that on top of my stamp. So I want to stamp this now on here. So I'm going to take the prize ribbon and I'm just going to go around the edges. And you can see that's not perfect, but we don't mind, do we? We're not bothered about too much perfection because we do more to it, that's why. So let's take that and just add that to our piece of Pink Frog Super Smooth card. There we go. You can hardly see anything. So let's take some water. Take our water, move that out of the way. And we'll just react that just in our blue. And I'm just going to colour now. Don't worry if you go over the lines because I'm going to cut mine out, so it doesn't really matter. Have a piece of kitchen roll, which I've got somewhere, because then if you've got too much moisture, you can just remove some of that. Just colour your little snowman in. And we can sort of remove some colour. If you want to have a lighter area, we can remove some of the colour. So, I want it a bit darker under there. Can you see how much pigment is actually in there? So you can see that you've got loads of pigment just in there. Lots of pigment. So just take your time. we go. And just leave that. Can you see it's quite textural at the moment? Then if you want, if you've got your stamping platform, obviously it's a lot easier because you can go over with your stamping platform. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to wing it like it is. So let's just add a little bit more darkness around here. I'm then just going to take this and I'm just going to line it up over the top. Ish. So I can just add a little bit more darkness over the top. Can you see? So I've got my little carrot in there. So I can then take some more water. Let's take that. And don't forget, you're cutting your little chap out, so it's not too much of a problem. So let's just blend these colours out. So I've got my carrot on there now. So I just need a little bit of the scarf now. So if you're using your stamp platform, that is perfect. You can use your stamp platform, no problem at all. Let's just give this a dry, just at the moment. So just give that a little bit of a dry. There we go. I'm then going to go back to my pencils. Let's take excuse me. So I've got my pencils. So you can see I can add bits afterwards. So like now I wasn't going to have the scarf, and now I'm thinking, I quite like the scarf now. So I can just go back in. Now if you've got your stamping platform, all the better. I'm just going to put it in, I'm afraid. Let me just... You could even just draw that in, because you can change the position of the scarf if you want. I might change the position of my scarf. So the scarf is here and I'm wanting it down here. So I'm going to change the position of the scarf. I might even just put it in anyway. Right. So I might change the position of my scarf. I'll see. But let's give him a red scarf. Let's just give him a little bit of a red scarf. Let's make that sort of a little bit fatter. It's more triangle. There we go. So let's just add a little bit of the red scarf. And don't worry, you can add some of your white touches if you wish afterwards. You can always tell when Tracy's losing herself. Says somebody's got an appointment today. Oh. I might have to stop this video and add to it. Just bear with me. I'm going to stop this video and I will have to join them together. So bear with me and I will be back soon. Bye everyone. Hello everyone. Well, that was eventful. I had a message on my phone to say that I'd got an appointment, and I hadn't actually got an appointment. So I was like, an appointment at 1 o'clock? I'm still recording. So I don't know what happened there. But no, I didn't have an appointment. But there you go. These things come to test us, don't they? So I'm going to carry on adding a little bit of red. So I've got my PC924 here, and I'm just adding a little bit of the red. Let's just add a few little strands from the scarf. And what I've done is I've just changed my scarf into a different direction. So then I'm using Poppy Red PC922 just to add some of the 922. So just adding, let's just go up there and down here a little bit. There we go. We can add some of those white touches afterwards, no problem at all. I'm just going to grab a little bit of a darker red. So if you find there's a little jump in the video, it might be where I had to stop and carry on again. So I'm not going mad, but just so that you know. Right. So then I'm going to take a bit of terracotta, PC944, just to make it a little bit darker, just to down the edges. Just make that a little bit darker down there. And just along the edge here, just so that we've got it a little bit darker, just along the edge. Then I'm going to take that 924 and just blend the dark colour, and then a little bit of that poppy red. Let's just come in a little bit of the colour there and a little bit of that paler colour, just to give our scarf. Let's add some dark touches just so you can see. Just make it a little bit darker, can't speak, just so that it's got a little touch of red there. We can have a few little touches of red on the hat if we wish, just to highlight that a little bit, just because it goes nicely with our colours. And if we want to add the hearts onto there, we can use our little red and we can just add some little hearts as well. There we go. So we can cut our snowman out. Okay. I'm going to cut him right to the edge. And I am sort of going to some degree cut a little bit of the sticky fingers out. Just the sort of the bits that I want. Nothing sort of complicated, just the straight line bits. Let's move that out of the way. There we go. Let's cut our snowman out. Now don't forget, you can use your stamping platform to go over and over with your image. I just winged it, because the idea is I'm having a little play just so you can see how I use the product. There we go. And it's good just to have a little play now and then. just to see how your product works. Again, you don't have to cut the hands out. You can just scribble them in. It's entirely up to you, you know, what you do with the hands. I'm not going to cut that little one out there. There we go. That's it. Just so that we can see we have our little snowman. But obviously we can add a little bit more darkness to that. Which one have I got now? Is it Blueprint Sketch? So in set 6, I've got Blueprint Sketch in my pencils, my watercolour pencils, my distress ones. So I can just take a little bit of water and I can just make it a little bit darker, just around. I've just put my hand in that water rather than anything else. Really good, Tracy. So let's just pick up that little bit of moisture and then we can just make that a little bit darker and just sort of come out to nothing. So it almost comes out to nothing. So I'll just pick a little bit of that water up again and I'm just going to make it a little bit darker just around the base again, just so that's a little bit darker. Oh, wrong end. That's it. And just blend this out. There we go. So it goes out just a little bit paler, like you can see. Again, you can obviously take some of your colour out with your distress. So if you, obviously if your water's clean, you can take a little bit of your colour out quite easily. Look how much pigment is in there. It's obviously better to use clean water, but you can take a little bit of pigment out. Can you see it tints the water? You can see how much of that pigment you're taking out of there. So you can see that quite easily. So if you want to take pigment out, you can do that as well. You can just quite easily just take out, no problem at all, removing some of your pigment. Can you see how much of that pigment you can remove? So then I've got a snowman that I can sort of add as my background. It's entirely, you know, I just need to decide which side I would like to add it, and I can see the texture in the background, and it's as if this snowman has peeled away from this sort of thing. So I'm going to work on this a little bit more because that's me all over. So it's still tinted, that is. So I'm just going to dab this just to lighten. So you can see I often put colour on, take colour off. There we go. Lovely. So I'm just going to give my little snowman a dry. Because he is quite wet on there. So let's turn him over. You can always tell how wet he is. His little arms make me laugh. There we go. Now you have to remember that playtime, for me, is always going to take me longer because I'm experimenting. So it's always going to take me longer to do everything. I'm going to take my bleed proof white, and I want a nice fine brush. I need to invest in some more brushes, to be honest. Mind you, that's quite fine, Tracy. I don't know what you're grumbling about there. So I've got a nice fine brush. Just highlight that with some pigment, and then let's move all these out of the way. I've got stuff everywhere, and I'm then going to add some touches of white, just to my snowman, because I think the touches of white always bring, you know, they bring it to life. Let's add a little. I always have a little bit of water with this so that it's not too thick. But that fine brush really helps. So let's just add a little bit of a snowy touch to his hat. And a little bit of then let's highlight his little eyes and nose. I have far too much fun with the white. It's just me all over. I love adding the touches of white because it just brings everything to life again. Now, when you use your brush with this bleed proof white, just make sure you give it a really good clean. So I'm just adding a little bit of white in my hat. I need to stop having so much fun. And it does take me a little bit longer. Because I just love adding. I'm going to, let's just bring the, I need to move these pencils. So let's just, that's texture that I've blown somewhere. I bet you I picked that texture up at some point. I bet you. So I'm just going to bend my little snowman like so. So I'm going to add him because I do want him to have some dimension. So let me just, so I'm going to use my pin flare because I do want him to have a little bit of dimension. Let's just fold that card a little bit. Again, you can adhere him flat if you wish. It doesn't have to be dimensional like I've got him. It doesn't have to be like that at all. So I'm then going to pick up this, continue picking up the white. So that we've got a little bit of a base. Now I'm using this bleed proof, so therefore it's not going to take on the oxide ink, and we don't want it to take on that oxide ink. You see, with this small hole punch, you didn't need the small hole punch, but you could use it to add some of those circles to the background, which I probably will do as well. But you can see I'm just playing. I'm not doing anything overly. So let's just, you could quite easily put this in your journal page. There we go. Quite easily. Did I put any adhesive on the hat? There we go. So let's pick up that moisture a little bit more, just so it's a little bit whiter. Can you see? I'm adding that layers and it just makes it a little bit whiter. Just here and there, it makes it a little bit whiter as well. And you can also, let's bring some of this bleed proof out to here. Let's add some water. So you're going to need to give that a good clean, but you can pick up this and just add some more of that white. Now it's only going to be fine because I'm using a fine brush. If you want it more than that, you can use your fan brush if you wish. I'll show you the difference with your fan brush. This just adds fine layers. With your fan brush, you just get more of the splatters, that's all. So now I'm just going to add some down here. So it's very snowy. And can you see that the white is really white against that because it's bleed proof? I am actually splattering this everywhere, but there you go. It's a good job I clean up, isn't it? There we go. Now you need to give that a really good clean. And if, like me, you've put it on your watercolour colours and everything else, just give your area a little bit of a wipe. Because I tend to splatter this everywhere compared to anything else. Let me just... the only thing I do is if you're demonstrating, you don't want to leave this sort of drying with that paint on. So I just try to give it a little bit of a rinse. I might use some more of these white circles. I'll see how I feel. Let's grab the card. This is an old punch, so I've gone straight through the blue. This is an old punch, so I don't know the size. I'll just, no, not the blue, Tracy. I keep going to cut the blue out. That side. There we go. So I can use them if I wish. Let me just check if I've got a little bit of pin flare on the hat. No, I haven't at the top. Sorry, I have to have it right. Let me put a bit of pin flare so that just doesn't float in midair doing nothing. Nothing like being particular, is there? That's better. Let's just bring you down a bit. There we go. And this is just making it from what we washed down with the Lindy's. We've still got all these backgrounds that I can use for florals or winter scenes or whatever. Let's just, let me just see if I do want to use the, I want to use, now you do know I'm going to faff forever. because it's just me. Don't want the... So it's entirely up to you how you develop your scene or whatever you want to call it. There we go, it's too regimented. There we go, and that. It's because I want to add a little beard, that's why I keep shuffling it around. So let's add our adhesive. You don't have to have the dots of card. You can quite easily just add dots of paint. It's entirely up to you. And then what I'm going to test afterwards is, we dried the card's had some time to dry on its own. We're going to test to see if you can still bleach out. So I'm not going to need one of the ones I've used white paint on, which I don't know whether it's that one or not. Let's have, no, I don't think it's that one. Oh, it could be, oh, who knows. So I'm going to take some water. I need a piece of clean kitchen towel so that we can see if we are removing any ink. So let's see if we are. So nice clean brush, and let's see if the ink still removes. Let's dab this. Yes. So if you want to come in and you want to continue bleaching out, you can still bleach out. So we can still play. Let's take some more water. Obviously, if you leave it longer, it will bleach out more. Yes, it works lovely. Works really nicely. Well, you can see by my water is going blue. I want a bigger one here, so let's add a bigger one there. So you can see I'm having far too much fun. So mix that in there, and I think I'm going to have a larger one here. And you can see my water is now tinted with the pigment. So you can just see that's tinted with the pigment. But it just, oh, I love it. Do you know, I could do that all day. In fact, I want some more. It's just far too much fun. So let's have a little one there. Little one here. One there. So you can see I'm sort of differing the sizes each time. So I've got some bigger ones and some smaller ones. So I'm differing the size each time. Just so you can see. You're just differing that size each time. I'm then going to, you knew I was going to say I'm going to take the bleed proof white, didn't you? I just had to. I'm then going to take some of that water, which is now blue. that water. And let's pick up this bleed proof white. You can use your white pens if you want. Use what you have and work with it. The only thing I can't work with is a little bit of moisture on the bottom of my paintbrush. So I'm then going to sort of just to add some little touches of the white, just so that it pops a little bit more. I'm just adding little touches of white, just so those just pop a little bit more. And then I can come in again and make this even whiter, because it's all about those layers. There's too much water there. I think I picked water up then. So let's pick up a little bit more white. So again, it's adding those layers of that colour. Let's just highlight his hands, just so that you can see that. Lovely. So we've then got some kind of shadow there as well. Again, I'm going to just rinse that, just so that my brush, I'm protecting my brush. There we go. Just so that you can see. And I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Let me just dry everything a little bit, because I don't want to get everything too wet. So just hitting it from the reverse. Then let's grab my blending tool. I thought I had it out. Yes, I have here. And then I'm going to take my little prize ribbon. And let's take a little bit of the prize ribbon. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the prize ribbon just around the outside, not where that white is, just to give it a little bit of a darker edge, so that that edge is really dark. There we go. Just wipe that up. I like to work in a clean area, just so that we've got our... So I want to just add a little bird looking at my snowman. So I'm going to go back to TE44. Let's place that back. And I'm bound to pick the wrong one up, because I normally do. Let's put my snowman back. There we go. I think it might be this one. Move that out of the way. So I'm going to stamp that in my black Nocturne ink. Still plenty of tapping. Let's move this out of the way. I'm just going to add my little beard here. There we go. And you can see I gave that plenty of time on there. So I gave that lots of time just to soak into there. And then maybe I can get away with, I wonder if I can get away with a bit of Posca pen. Just sort of a touch of white, but not too much white. I could have actually just bleached that out actually. So then I've got a piece of white card that is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and I'm just going to add it to that. And you can see I've got some bend in that card. So again, I will just add adhesive to the centre. Let's just pick that up and make sure we've got that. Obviously, you can make sure everything is dry, unlike Tracy, who never makes sure anything's dry. And you can see I'm pressing in the middle as well. And what I would suggest is when this is drying, place something not too heavy, but just so then it'll dry quite flat. Your snowman is what will dry. It'll still have the dimension, but it won't have any curling. Okay, and what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to take the edge of the ink pad and just place it around the edge of that white piece, just so that it's white but it's got a tinge of blue just on the edge. Let's just press that down. So the only thing I'm doing now is just making sure it's adhered in the centre. I'm then going to add that to a 5 by 7 card blank. So let's add that. To a 5 by 7 card blank. And it's just got that line of blue on there that just sets it apart from the background. So let's just straighten that a bit. That's better. So let's just place that on one side. And then we'll stamp the word snowman. We don't need that acrylic block. And you know I've just pulled the stamps out, so why can't I find them? Because they're there, Tracy, that's why. So we take that snowman word and I'm going to stamp that in Twilight. So I'm going to take my Twilight ink let's add that Twilight ink. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Now I might, oh, do you know what I've done here? I've left a bit of white in there. That's it. There we go. I might still come back and do a card using this. I might use the white ink pad after all because I love that background, so I might use that. We shall see in another video. So let's cut the snowman out, the snowman wording. I've got the biggest scissors ever. And can you see I try not to hold the edges. so that I don't smudge that ink. This doesn't stay quite as wet as the black. Put a picture of that up actually. As I bring the card in, and we're just going to add Snowman, and I'm just going to add that here like so, just to keep it in my lovely little cluster. Just add that there like so. Now I'm not going to add shading underneath because I don't want that. I want it to be quite that stark white because I like that. There we go. And finally we get our little video done after all our interruptions. So let's just add a little bit of white there. And he's going to have a little bit of white on his little back there as well. And just so you can see. And that is our little project finished. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you'll give that a go. And I may be back with another video with this background. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.